Dear learners, welcome to video lecture series 6 for BA first semester Political Science in the paper of Introduction to the Political Theory. I am Dr. Deepak Kumar Kashyap, Assistant Professor at Pandit Sundarlal Sarma Open University. Today we will discuss on the topic authority, meaning, definition, characteristics, and types. Basically, authority is a fundamental concept in political science because it forms the backbone of every organized society. Without authority, no government, institutions, or organization can function effectively. In this lecture, I will first explain the meaning of authority, which refers to the legitimate right to command and direct others. I will also clarify the important difference between authority and power and showing how authority is socially accepted and legally recognized power. Then I will discuss the formal definition of authority, including the explanation given by the German sociologist Max Weber, who described authority as legitimate power that people willingly obey. After that, I will explain the main characteristics of authority, such as legitimacy, defined limits, discipline, social acceptance, representation, and accountability. These features help us to understand how authority functions responsibly within society. Next, I will discuss the different types of authority, including traditional, charismatic, and legal rational authority, along with relevant example. Finally, I will conclude by explaining the proper use of authority and why it must always be balanced with responsibility and ethical conduct.
The meaning of authority. The meaning of authority is essential for organized human life. Imagine a society where no one has the right to make decisions or give directions. There would be confusion and disorder. So, authority creates a system where roles are clearly defined and responsibilities are assigned. It establishes a chain of command which help in coordination and smooth functioning. Authority ensures that rules are followed and goals are achieved efficiently. It also helps in resolving conflicts because there is a recognized decision making body. Therefore, authority is not about domination but about maintaining structure and cooperation within society and organization. If we talk about the types of authority, the German famous sociologist Max Weber provide one of the most influential definition of authority in the social sciences. According to him, authority is legitimate power that is socially accepted and voluntarily obeyed. Weber also argued that the people who obey authority not because of fear but because they believe it is rightful. And he identified the source of legitimacy as the key factor distinguishing different systems of governance. He groundbreaking classification. He divides authority into three types. First is traditional authority, which is based on customs and inherited practices. Second is charismatic authority, which is based on personal qualities of a leader. And third is legal rational authority, which is based on formal laws and institutional rules. And we can say that why authority is indispensable and why authority is important for all the forms of government. Authorities serve as the backbone of every functioning society and organization because its important extends across multiple dimensions of human life, from governance and law enforcement to business operations and community life. First, the law implementation. Authority ensures that laws and policies and regulations are the properly enforced and followed across country. Second, clear decision making. The authority it clarifies who is responsible for decisions, eliminating ambiguities and enabling swift action. Third, accountability. Leaders with authority must justify their actions and creating a culture of transparency and responsibility. And fourth, efficiency and coordination. In organizations, authority improves coordination among teams and promote efficient resource and allocations. If we talk about the characteristics of authority, the first characteristics is legitimacy. The most fundamental feature of authority is the legitimacy because he recognizes that authority is lawful, justified, and rightfully exercised. Without legitimacy, authority is merely a coercion disguised as governance. Basically, if we talk about the legitimacy, legitimacy may derive from multiple sources like democratic elections, constitutional laws, long-standing traditions, or widely held moral values. When authority is legitimate, people obey willingly rather than through fear. However, legitimacy is not permanent. It governments that lost public trust often face protest, civil disobedience, and political instability. If we talk about the second characteristics of authority, that is defined limit. Authority always has limits. In modern democracy system, authority is never absolute. Laws and constitutions define boundaries. These limits prevent misuse of power and protect citizen rights. For example, even the president or prime minister must act within constitutional limits. Defined limits ensure fairness, accountability, and balance in governance. And if we saw in practice, the limits constitutional boundaries have even head of the state must operate with constitutional provision, which we talk like president or prime minister of any country. Second, it have separation of power where legislative, executive and judiciary balances check and each other. The third is term limit. Elected officials serve for defined periods preventing entrenchment, and fourth is judicial review. Court can overturn actions that exceed authority. Through these defined limits ensure fairness, accountability and balance in government and protecting both individual and institution. The third features of authority is discipline and order. Authority basically establish and maintain discipline and order. Two prerequisites for any society or organization to function effectively by creating clear rules and ensuring compliance. Authority reduces confusion and enables structured goal-oriented functioning. If we saw in this diagram, first authority creates a framework of rules, expectation and behavioral standard of all members that is called rule establishment. Second is the compliance ensured, where through legitimate enforced mechanism, authority ensures that rules are consistently followed. And third is the goal achieved. By disciplined, coordinate effort under authority drives the efficient achievement of collective objective. And other some features are authority like tied to position, not a person. Authority is attached to an office or role, not an individual permanently. When a school principal retires, authority passes to the successor and ensuring institutional continuity and stability. Second is the social acceptance. Authority must be recognized and accepted by the people it governs. In democracies, elections provide this acceptance. Without public trust, and social approval, authority erodes and many collapse entirely. And some other features is representation. Authority holders represent their organization, manager represents company interest, and authority must serve collective welfare, not personal gain. If we talk about the types of authority, Max Weber classification of authority into three ideal types remains one. Each type derives its legitimate from a fundamental different sources and producing distinct patterns of leadership and governance. We saw in three types of authority. First is the traditional authority, second is the charismatic authority, and third is the legal rational authority. And through this authority, we understanding these types of help explain how different political systems, organizations, and culture establish and maintain authority structures. If we talk about the first authority, that is called the traditional authority. In traditional authority, basically the authority derives its legitimacy from customs, establishment practice, and inherent norms. People obey because it has always been this way. The authority of the past justifies the authority of the present. If we saw the key features of traditional authority, first it is rooted in long-standing cultural and social traditions. Second, its leadership is often hereditary and passed from parent to child. The third, common in monarchies, tribal societies, and feudal system. Fourth, it provides deep cultural stability and continuity. And fifth, it may resist modernization and social change. If we take the historical examples where the traditional authority is present in European monarchies such as the British Crown, tribal chieftains in indigenous community, and feudal lords who governed territories through inherited rights for centuries. If we talk the second type of authority, that is called a charismatic authority. Charismatic authority is based on an extraordinary personal qualities of an individual leader and their vision, moral convince, and rhetorical power and ability to inspire devotion. Followers obey not because of tradition or law, but because they are moved by the leader, its character. If we saw this charismatic authority example in India, that is the Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi led India to independence through non-violent resistance, and his moral authority and personal sacrifice inspired millions to follow without any formal legal mandate. The second we example that take in Nelson Mandela in South Africa, it emerged from 27 year of imprisonment to lead South Africa's transition from apartheid. His forgiveness and vision unified a deeply divided into nation. The third type that is called legal rational authority. Basically, legal rational authority is the dominant form in modern democratic society. Its legitimacy derives not from tradition or personal charisma, but from codified laws, formal rules, and institutional procedure. Authority belongs to the office, not to the individual copying. If we saw the features of legal rational authority, there are three features. First, it is based on rule of law, where every, including those in power, is subject to the same legal framework. Not one is above the law. The second feature is institutional continuity. When an office holder leaves, the authority transfers seamlessly to their successor through established procedure. And third is equality before the law. In this authority, the legal rational system promotes fairness by applying rules consistently and impartially to all citizens. If we compare the three types of authority concept given by Max Weber, if we take the dimensions, the traditionals, charismatic and regal rational. If we talk about the source of traditional authority, that is custom and heritage. Charismatic authority is personal qualities, and the third legal rational is laws and formal rules. If we talk about the second dimension, that is legitimacy, in traditional authority, the legitimacy has always been so. In charismatic devotion to the leader, and a legal rational, that is constitutional mandate. If we saw the third dimension, that is leadership, in traditional authority the leadership is often hereditary, in charismatic under through vision, and legal rational elected or appointed. In fourth dimension, that is stability, in traditional authority there are high cultural roots, and charismatic they are low tied to person, and legal rational, that is high institutional. If fourth dimension we compare, that is the adaptability. In traditional society authority, it resists change. In charismatic authority, that drives rapid change. In legal rational, that evolves through reform. In fifth dimensions, we take the modern examples. In traditional authority, we can see in British monarchy. In charismatic authority, we can change revolutionary leader. And legal rational authority, we can set in democratic government. In lastly, we said that in practice, many modern systems blend elements of all three types. A democratic leader, for instance, may hold a legal rational authority while also drawing on personal charisma. If we talk about if we what happens when the authority is misused, if we saw the consequences of misuse, first is the corruption. If authority used for personal enrichment undermines public trust. Second is operations. If authority is misused, the operations is taking place where unchecked authority suppresses individual rights and freedoms. The third is instability. If authority misused, then the loss of legitimacy leads to protest and civil disobedience and political upheaval. And fourth is erosion of institutions. When repeatedly misuse of power authority, we can saw the weakness the structure authority depends upon. If we talk about the safeguard against misuse, where the authority is fear about if they can misuse this system, this mechanism will protect the individual rights. The first is the free press. Free press, independent media holds and leader accountable. Second, judicial independence, where courts serve as a check and on executive and legislative power. The third is the civil society, where the active civic participation which monitors and challenges authority. And fourth, term limits and elections. In regular democracy, processes ensure peaceful transfer of power. So, these are the safeguard against the misuse of authority in any form of government. If we talk about the key takeaways from the concept of authority, we saw first authority is the legitimate power. In this point, we saw that unlike raw power, authority is recognized, accepted, and exercised with established framework. Legitimacy is its essential foundation. Second, authority has a clear characteristic. It is defined by the legitimacy, limits, discipline, positional attachment, social acceptance, representation, and accountability. The third, the Weber classification of endures traditional, charismatic, and legal rational authority, which provides a powerful lens for understanding governance across culture and eras. And fourth is responsible exercise is essential. In authority must always be exercised ethically, transparently, and within defined limits, serve the public interest above all else. If we talk about the conclusion, To conclude, authority is the legitimate use of power. It is essential for order, discipline, and governance. However, authority must always be exercised responsibly, ethically, and within limits. When balanced with accountability and transparency, authority promotes development and social harmonies. Misuse of authority leads to corruption and stability. Therefore, we can say that authority must always serve the public interest. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.